Yeah, all I need is one mic. Yeah, all I need is one mic.
Welcome to One Mic, the Delvin Cox Experience and Daily DVR's deep dive into Loki. It's a lot of D's. Today we're going to be talking about season 1, episode 3, entitled Lamentus, directed again by Kate Herron and written by Bisha K. Ali, she had worked on Sex Education, so another connection because the director of the first episode directed an episode. No, oh, actually, Kate Herron, I think, yeah, who directed all the episodes, had directed and met a lot of people on Sex Education. And Bisha Ali also is the writer and showrunner of the Miss Marvel TV show that is going to premiere in, I think, the fall.
Is it that soon? Wow.
I think it is. Yeah, I think that they just finished or they're finishing now.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So I just want to take a second to say, I really like the way we saw this on Falcon and Winter Soldier. Same thing with WandaVision. Marvel is really using these shows to create like its own in-house kind of stable of writers and directors, and they're bringing them in for the movies and the shows, and I really like that. I kind of like this studio like system. It is a studio, but the old studio system that they're kind of developing there, because we've seen them do that with actors and some directors, but over the course of the 10 years they have recycled. Some people have not come back into the fold, so I like the way they're doing this. Again, if you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, please do leave a like, subscribe, write us a review. Also, we're going to be talking about, and you should check out Mike's instant reaction to this episode on the One Mike channel. I am Axel. You can find out more about me at dvrpodcast.com. With me, of course, are Mike and Delvin, who've already talked a little bit. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Ready to achieve my glorious purpose of talking about about this show. So yeah, another fun episode to discuss.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. How about you, Delvin? You enjoy this one?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I do want to touch on what you said just a minute ago about how Marvel gets these directors that are little known and kind of bring them into the fold. I think that's smart because I'm quite sure the Russo brothers would like that.
Yeah.
And to add on to that factor, I'm quite sure Marvel's not getting the Russo brothers for the same price they were getting when they first started making Marvel movies. So it's kind of smart to bring in these directors that may be a little bit cheaper, who can still kind of put out the same quality of content that you probably want. And even if it's a drop, it's not that much of a drop. And they can kind of still build those directors up to the movie level. So I like what they're doing so far with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Axel. You can go ahead.
No, that's all I was just.
Oh yeah, to kind of piggyback on that too, like I like the idea of having kind of like an in-house set of people, because you can kind of get everybody on one page as to what you want to do, and that way no one's kind of like coming in and like fucking up the aesthetic or whatever it is they're trying to go for. And this isn't an apples to apples comparison by any means, but like when you don't have that and you have different minds and different creatives all working on the same project, you end up with Star Wars episode 7, 8, 9, where you don't have that. Yeah, where you don't have that kind of like everybody's on one page kind of continuity. Because even with these shows, WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Loki, they're all different shows. They all have a different vibe to them. But at the end of the day, I'm not looking at it like WandaVision was cool. What the fuck was Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki's okay? Like, it's like they're still like, they still feel like Marvel content, and they still feel like they align with one another, and they're going to align with the films, and it's going to be really cool. And we don't end up with a Star Wars 7, 8, 9 situation where they don't feel cohesive.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I like that Marvel is putting out content that can be a 7 or 8 in terms of quality consistently. That's good. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like they've learned that lesson, you see, with The Mandalorian, and kind of letting Filoni and what's his name, Favreau, I was going to say the guy from Swingers.
What?
I think that's right, isn't it? Didn't he write Swingers or something like that?
Oh yeah, Swingers. Yeah, you don't remember that?
Yeah,
That's
he
how-
wrote that.
Bro, yeah,
I thought you were talking about Vince Vaughn, and I'm like, like what?
that's his buddy. They were roommates in Hollywood,
Oh,
and Favreau wrote Swingers with Vince Vaughn as a vehicle to launch he and Vince Vaughn's career.
I didn't know that.
Had one role before that, but then that was really their breakout. So I still think of Favreau as the guy from Swingers. Like to this day, he's like, it's money, baby, it's money. But yeah, they're starting to do that too, which they should have done. You're totally right, dude. That's a great analogy because, man, if only they could redo those Star Wars because they were just such a mess. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
just one guy, just
Yeah.
do all three.
Dave Filoni. Oh my God, he's just give him the franchise at this
Exactly.
point. Looking at what he
Yeah.
did with Mandalorian, looking at what he did with the cartoon series. Yeah, just give it to him.
Yeah.
I'm honest, being honest.
they're doing it right. And this was a very fun episode. There wasn't a ton. There was some plot things and things we can pick up.
There was
gen-
a big plot thing.
Yeah, that's true. But they're generally speaking, for me, it was like the vibe of this episode I really liked. It was very Doctor Who, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just that crazy kind of like Ragnarok, that kind of like space opera zaniness. They're just running around. And even I felt like some of the effects in this episode were, I'm not going to say that they were bad, but it's just sometimes it did look like they were in like a 1950s kind of sci-fi thing, like you could kind of tell a little bit that they were in that volume thing and they weren't really there.
TV budget.
Yeah, TV, exactly. And they kind of use that to their advantage when Sylvie is interrogating what's her name? What was it? Hunter C-20.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Yes.
background kind of changes
Mhm.
and they kind of played with that. So I felt that there was this whole episode felt very dreamy and almost like it may have been an illusion the whole episode. And there's some talk out there, some theories about that. Claire wrote on our Facebook about that. But overall, I just thought this was such a fun episode. And the casting of Sylvie was great. She is really fantastic. I read an interview with her, and she had worked with Kate Herron on a short film, and that's how they knew each other, and that's how she got cast. So again, Marvel being smart, not forcing someone into that role, right? But listening to the director who says, hey, I know this English actress, she's not really big, but she's amazing, and they give her the role. And
And
there
she's probably cheap.
yeah, exactly. Totally true. And they're getting it on the ground floor with her, right?
Mhm.
Building trust with the audience too. So I just thought that was a smart move.
Let me ask you both a question. Did y'all figure out who Sylvie is yet?
What do you mean figure out who Sylvie is? I'm guessing that, well, I guess that makes my answer no. But
All right.
I haven't because like I don't, all the lore and stuff I'm not sure of, but I'm interested to hear.
If you Google who Sylvie is, she basically is Enchantress from the Marvel comic books. Her name lines up with the second Enchantress from the comic books. That's why she kept saying, don't call me Loki. Even though she's a variant of Loki, for comic book nerds, she's the Enchantress.
okay, gotcha.
What significance or storylines or how would we know of her, or how would the character of the Enchantress kind of touch the MCU that we know already or are going to know?
She's a major Thor villain, and she's usually seen with Loki almost like a sidekick, but she does the illusion things and things like that. She's part of the Masters of Evil. If you watch the Marvel animated series shows, she's almost in all of those shows in one version or another. So she's in Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. She's in Avengers Assemble. She's in a lot of that type of stuff. So she's a major Marvel villain.
I like how they're doing things similar to WandaVision, where you had Agnes, and then like people speculate like, who is Agnes? And then the whole time Agatha Harkness, it made sense. And then now you seemingly have hopped on this Enchantress thing too. So like I kind of like that, how they found a way to introduce a villain character, but in a kind of like roundabout kind of way. It's not like here's Enchantress. It's like, nope, it's actually like we're gonna make her also a Loki variant and Lady Loki and like there's so many different angles that they kind of took to get there, as opposed to just throwing her on and like, here's Enchantress. I like the kind of figure it out kind of deal for those villains. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think each show has done a good job of that. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier didn't blatantly tell us that was U.S. agent, but you kind of figured out as well, okay, this is U.S. agent, and this is going on. This is this character. This is this character. I like that Marvel's not throwing that in your face. Like, this is who this person is.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think too that like Mike said, the kind of connection to the magical realms, which this is continuing, but the way that they're remixing these characters continues to be great. And like, I mean, I'll say it again, coming from covering Game of Thrones for however many years, where like the book people needed it to be the way it was in the book, or else they got so upset. I have to hand it to the comic book crowd for being open to these kind of changes and remixes and having fun with it, instead of me hearing after every episode like, oh, they fucked that up. Damn, like
Yeah, that's a good point.
again, I think that, let's give a nod to the comic book fans who often get a lot of shit. Not that they don't deserve it a lot of times, but that it's kind of cool, because coming from this, like I said, I wasn't always a Marvel fan. It's only been the last couple of years that I reassociated myself with it after reading different comics and some of this, but mostly different comics when I was a kid. That I think that that's neat that Delvin, you can have that history, but be excited by the fact that they remixed that in there. And I thought that this whole character of Sylvie was really interesting. And I think the way that she is so dominant right from the get-go, like we literally were just introduced to her, like she had one scene, and then she really did great in this episode, not only the actress but the writing too, and picked up on a variant of Loki, right? Like she is in many ways has a lot of the same aspects as the Loki that we know, but she's also a little bit more like the Loki we were introduced in the beginning, a little more confident, right? Because Loki was more confident when we first met him, before he found out where he was really from and all that, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. So I think that it's been really awesome that they can really just throw a character in here in one episode and she explodes like this. What everybody is talking about, and we should talk about it too, is like the big reveal that Loki's bisexual and she's bisexual. I saw headlines and they were like the big reveal, and I was like, I really liked it because it wasn't a big reveal.
We just talked about it in last episode.
Yeah, they just moved on, like, yeah, you're right. They talked about last episode too. So I don't know what you guys have to say about it besides that.
That's not a reveal to me.
Well, it's not a reveal in the sense of like, you look at it like, I already kind of felt like, I already kind of knew that Loki had a very fluid sexuality and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's a reveal in the sense of, I don't want to call it brave necessarily, but putting something like that on Disney, like where, okay, this is our first non like just straight up heterosexual main character, right? Like there's no other characters that are just not straight up heterosexual within the MCU anyway. I don't think.
I don't think so. But the thing to me is like, I just don't associate MCU and sexuality in any way, shape, or form. Do you know what I mean? Like, so even when say Black Widow does her little sexy kick thing or anything, a lot of times like dudes laugh or they're like, okay, you know, like it I just don't associate it. So I don't know that. I had to think to myself, I guess this is the first character that is not heterosexual. But then again, I don't know that all the other characters have said that they're heterosexual. I thought that for the longest time, um, I thought that Jeremy Renner was going to end up being gay early on. And I think a lot of people did. And then he had a family and kids that we never knew about, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing with the MCU and sexuality in general. I kind of turn that part of myself off when I watch it.
Yeah. I mean, me too. Yeah. I mean, me too. It's just the reason I find it interesting or commendable at least is they could have not done anything. They could have just not addressed it. And I don't want to say address it because it makes it sound like they needed to do something, but like they could have just been like, this is a Disney show. We don't need to talk. We don't need to even allude to Loki's sexuality. But the fact that like Delvin, already said, like, a lot of us know this already. They didn't have to put that in there. But the fact that they slid it in there, just very subtle, and then went away from it, I don't know. I thought it was cool because like they could have done nothing and they didn't have to put that in there, but they did, and they did it, I think well. They didn't make a big deal out of it or anything like that. So I thought it was pretty cool.
I agree. I think it was cool the way they did it, where it just was like a passing thought or something like that. I think that when you do it in a way like that, it doesn't come off like pandering.
Yeah.
Because if anybody who follows Greek mythology, they know Loki is gender fluid and things like that. And plus, Marvel comic books and things like that, we know the history of the character, so we kind of can put two and two together. I'm glad that Disney is not shying away from that and actually is kind of like, hey, no, we're gonna do this our way. And Disney has been known, even though people give them flack for it, to be more open with characters today than they were in the past. Like there are a lot of cartoon shows now they have gay characters, gender fluid characters, and things like that. I think I want to say one of their shows, the son of the show, his dad, he has two dads. So it's cool to see that Disney's kind of opening up their doors, doing more of that type of stuff, and just kind of making it, normalizing it, essentially. It's dope.
I've also seen a lot of articles and inquiries about that too. Like people have been up various Marvel executives' asses about Loki's sexuality. Like, oh, is Loki gay? Like people have been like on that ever since Thor. They've been up their ass about Loki's sexuality. And again, they could have done nothing and continue to do nothing. But I like the fact that they slid that in a little bit. Now all those people can shut up and it's fine.
I will say this: it does add context to Thor Ragnarok. And the whole, what's the guy name who was running the planet?
I don't know. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I remember his name in the movie for some reason.
If I remember correctly, Jeff Goldblum's character was gender fluid as well.
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes more sense that Loki would have come there and immediately become friends with them, hanging out with them and stuff like that.
They made reference to that in the movie. Now that you mention that, you're right, Delvin. You're right. Mm-hmm. See, that's cool. I like you. That's true. And like you're saying, Mike, I think it's cool that they did it too, because I'm all about that. Love is love. And I think representation is very important. We just had the first gay NFL player. Well, out NFL player.
Well, second technically. But
that's what I thought. I'm like, why do they keep saying he was the first? Like, I thought another guy came out before. Sam something?
Michael Sam. They didn't pick him up. That's the difference. He didn't get to play a full official game.
Oh, okay.
He only played preseason.
Okay.
On a practice squad in preseason. He never even made the full team.
Oh, so that's why they stress first active.
Not to shit on the dude, you know what I'm saying? He was very brave too. And he was drafted too. He was the first guy to declare before the draft, right?
Yes.
So very brave of him too. But like I said, with Loki and like with the NFL too, like someone said, that guy might be the first NFL player to declare that he's gay, but that is no way the first NFL player that was gay.
Not at all.
And guess what? There's a whole lot of them right now too, right? And that's the same thing. Like we're saying, it for representation, it's very important. It can play into the storyline. I think actually we had a great Facebook comment from Claire in our daily DVR Facebook page, and she thought it was great poetic justice that she felt like Loki was like literally falling in love with himself.
That's a Loki thing to do.
And that she's not sure that it'll go that way, but they hinted towards it. And I think that that is a fun part of it too, right? Because the thing of Loki is like, it's not that he's gay or straight or bi or whatever. It's just that he's just so enamored with himself, he wants to share it with someone. Like, he doesn't want to like fuck the other person. He just wants to be like, look at my glorious body, behold. And so I think that's funny. And that, you're right, Delvin, too, that plays into the classic Greek mythologies and other mythologies that are part of Marvel too. And I think that's a cool part of Marvel. I've always thought it was really neat that Thor is Thor. Like when I was a kid, and I was like, for the longest time, I was like, wait, is that the same Thor that I heard? And then when I read the comic, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool how they did that and integrated our own mythologies, because there's a reason why Superman was invented by two Jewish guys, invented the Christ figure. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
these mythologies are a part of us. And when they go to that level, I really like it. So I think that that's really kind of cool. There was a lot of cool music. They set the tone for this in the music too. Like right in the beginning, there's like sexy music that's happening. You probably know who that was, that song, but I don't know because I don't know any music.
I can't remember now. I knew it when I heard it, but I can't
Yeah, I
remember
can't
off the top of my
remember
head.
I'm like an old man.
You're not like an old man.
Good point. But what did I wanted to ask you all? They did spend a good amount of time with Sylvie tricking Hunter C20 into telling her where the timekeepers were, how many people are guarding them. Was there a greater significance to this, or was that just showing us that she can play these tricks? Or because I just felt to myself like, this is a long time that we're doing this, and the trick in the beginning where they weren't really where they were made me think again. And Claire brought it up too, like, did either of you get the feeling that maybe some of this was an illusion, or there's something else going on, or Loki's being tricked, or the TVA, or Sylvie, or something? Or is it just me?
I interpret it as them showing, like, giving us the visual representation of what she later explained. Like when he asked her, like, how do you do this? And she said something like, you know, if they're really strong minded, I have to kind of like create a different world in their head so that they can, you know, the trick or whatever. Like, so she explained it. I've looked at it as like they showed us that visually so that we would understand what she was saying when she explained it later. And then also at some point, again, I think it will probably come back and we'll see it again. And it will be a little bit more impactful. I think next time we see it. But yeah, I just looked at it like, yeah, that's the thing that I looked at it like, oh, so that's what was happening at the beginning. Like you could tell like she was fucking with her head, but like when she actually explains like why she has to do it that way, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And then that also tells us that Hunter C20 must have a stronger than average mind.
Yeah.
And if they're all variants.
I kind of took the similar approach to it as Mike did. And also, when I saw that part, I'm like, okay, this is not just like Loki. That's when I started thinking of the Enchantress thing. Like, that's more of a Enchantress type trait to change the whole environment where a person's at and completely manipulate them to believe something that may or may not be true. So, like, oh, that's interesting how they did that. And I like that they showed us that. And it kind of makes you feel like what we saw in this episode could be true, or it couldn't be true, because there are moments in the episode where she could have very much tricked Loki into believing what was happening at the end of this episode.
Well,
that
doesn't
we-
she have to? She would have had to touch him though, and he stopped her from doing that because she tried it. She tried to actually touch him and then he was like, "No, so you can." This is not what he said, but he said something like, "No, so you can fuck with my mind." No, we're not doing that.
But
Like-
then again, remember, she told him this. So don't trust Loki in any form of fashion. And also, there's a moment where he gets completely wasted and drunk.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. And then I also wondered, and I think you guys can give your take on this too, because it kind of ends on a cliffhanger, right? Like, how are they going to get
Yes.
off Lamentus? And the whole time, the only reason is I can't figure out why, but the whole time I never believed that the TemPad was broken. Like he
Yes.
took it out and was like, "Oh, it's broken. We're stuck." I'm like, "Bullshit! You just put it in a pocket dimension like you do your fucking knives and like you did the Tesseract. Like you just put it in the pocket dimension and it's perfectly fine." But then
Yes.
what's the end game on that? Like, why make her think that they're stuck when they could leave?
I'm curious if, and I think this would be cool if they were both tricking each other.
Jesus Christ!
Like she made this world up that he thinks that the planet's gonna blow up, so she can get the TemPad. Loki knows she's tricking him, so he
My God.
pretend that
Like this, Delvin. This is what I mean. When I rewatched the episode, it happened so quick. They jump through the thing. She's in the TVA, right? She
yes,
takes out some guards. Then he appears. They start fighting. Then they turn around, and what's her name? Hunter B-15 is there, and she throws them through some portal, right? Or Loki grabs the thing that goes.
Loki, yeah.
Okay. And then they're gone, and that's when they wake up on Lamentus and they're in another apocalypse that's happening, right? And it made me think, okay, were all the apocalypses pre-programmed into that thing? Like, why did they go to an apocalypse?
I assume that too. And then because when they go through, she's like, "Why did you send us here?" And I'm like, "He didn't send you there on purpose." So then I had that thought, like, I wonder if these apocalypses are almost like pre-programmed into this, so she could just kind of like float around with almost like the presets on a radio. like here's 95.5.
Was thinking that she was like, it's like home on Google Maps or whatever, right? Like but then that just made me think what Delvin was saying is that's kind of her illusion, right? Like the apocalypses, she'd know that. So I don't know. We could be thinking too much into it, and it could be very simple. The end that end when they are just racing to the ship and it explodes.
Yeah.
So that was so hilarious. And they've done this many times before in the MCU, right? Like they're going against, oh, we can do it. And then it just totally ends in failure. Like when Andy's saying they love to destroy everything. But I've got to think that there's got to be like a cameo here, right? Like either Owen Wilson saves them in some way because we didn't see him in this episode. And now that we found out, like we mentioned, that all the TVA are actually variants. They're not created and made by the TVA. Maybe there's a different plan going on here. We saw this stuff with Owen Wilson when he was fighting with Ravonna, kind of like their inter-office squabbling. Maybe there's like a larger plan that's happening here, but I also think possibly a cameo that someone swoops in and like rescues them from the Marvel universe. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I like that this show, unlike WandaVision, when you can speculate about things and you won't get too carried away with it. So if it doesn't happen, you don't get disappointed by it. Like WandaVision, I think at this point from WandaVision to now, we kind of have our expectations measured just enough. But we don't get with WandaVision, I think everybody kind of got out of hand, like, oh, this is gonna happen. We're gonna see Doctor Strange, we're gonna see that. With Loki, I feel like while we can see something that may be a major character, we kind of know what to expect and who to expect and what level of a major character we can expect in terms of, okay, if we get somebody like who I think of smiling, who could be a major character, like one of the Warriors 3. That seems feasible.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, here's Captain Marvel out of nowhere.
Well, that I agree. I think it would be some, because I guess this, when we also don't know when, I don't know if they said it, when this is too. Did they say when this was? Because that could also depend on who swoops in to get someone else, and it's connected to a different history that we don't know, because we're not only in some crazy far off world, but it's at some time that we don't know when this happened. They went all the way back to Pompeii before, and
It's 2077.
oh, okay, it's 2070. So it's
Yeah.
it's in our future.
Yes.
That brings up another interesting thing, right? Like who they could throw in there if somebody does pop up. But we, like you said, we don't want to go too far off there. But I think that whole last scene too, just to give a shout out to, it seemed like they tried to make it like appear that it was kind of like a one shot, in which it probably wasn't. I have to do a little research.
I don't think it was,
I don't think it was either.
but they definitely went for that.
And I liked it. I appreciated that. That's why I didn't really check, because I don't think that I think they were just trying to go for that feeling, and it was really, really awesome. And it gave me a lot of the feelings like the films do, where it's just this entire, you're thinking to yourself like, wait a second, the entire planet's gonna explode. Like it's not like they have to escape a city or a wave or something. It's like the entire planet. And I love those stakes.
Yeah, and
You know,
2077 is not that far away, by the way. It's not like it's 100 years in the future. That's like 50, 60 years away.
Yeah, we could still
even
feasibly be
MCU
around.
Yeah, even in MCU timeline, we're in the same timeline, so it's like 50 years away.
You know what it reminded me of, that final sequence? And Delvin, I don't know, have you watched Game of Thrones, Delvin?
Yes, I've seen the whole show.
Okay, you know what it reminded me of, Axel? It reminded me of the you remember the Loot Train episode? I think it's like season 7. It's called Spoils of War. It reminded me of the scene where Bronn is trying to get to that big arrow that he shot Drogon with.
Oh yeah.
Like yeah, and it's just like that. Like he runs into something and it's like, oh, here's a thing. Oh, I can't. Oh, something explodes and it follows.
Something did Mike's whole house explode. You okay over there?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Where'd my controls go? Like my controls went away and everything.
I don't know what happened, but that was funny.
I knocked my microphone into my cup, but
in the cup.
No, I knocked it into a cup, like my water cup. My microphone hit my cup and then my cup spilled over.
That was
Okay.
So
there it is. Okay. I'm like, what happened to my control bar? But yeah, I thought that's what it reminded me of. I thought it reminded me of that Bronze scene in the Spoils of War episode.
I'm right there with you. And I mean, that's classic. Gosh, honestly, a scene like that goes back to the origins of film, like the runaway train. You know what I mean? It's just pure entertainment, and that was what this episode was great for. The fight scenes and the running around and just the little kind of MacGuffin things, like we have to charge the temp pad. We have to, like
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, what are they doing again? And then they remind we got to charge the temp pad. And then he pretends he's some old dude, and but probably the most important part was when they sit at that bar and they talk and they have kind of a conversation with each other. And this is where we learn a couple of different things. They talk a little bit, I think, about the sexuality too, but they also talk about how their histories are different, how she knew she was adopted, but she's been, the TVA has been like chasing her whole life. Like where in the way that Loki had everything that happened with Thor, when his whole Odin and his whole family dominates his storyline, her story, he is actually stepping into her storyline. That's what I thought was interesting when they talked about that, because that's the way she's seeing it. Like, I've been fighting this. While you've been running around after infinity gems that we use as paperweights, I've been chasing and fighting the real oppressor here, the TVA. And I thought that was an interesting part. Also, of course, the part where she reveals that the TVA people themselves weren't created by the timekeepers, but they're actually variants that have come to work there. Couple points there, but I want to ask you guys, do you think that Owen Wilson and the other people know that they're variants? Or
No.
do you think that okay.
Nope.
That's
And I think that harkens back to my theory from last week with the whole thing with the cup ring being on the table. And I was saying, like, I feel like this has happened over and over, and that she was saying, like, now I feel like, and I think in the first episode there's a brief little dialogue between the two of them where Mobius alludes to some other agent, like, oh, you have some other agent that you like, huh? And he like asked her about it multiple times. And I feel like that kind of harkens back to that. Like, literally, it's been Mobius. This other agent is actually another Mobius variant.
Yeah.
It's been him the whole time, and they're just re-looping
Or that, yeah.
that. Yeah, and it does play into the idea that this, like, I always ask myself whenever I'm watching a show, why am I watching this story? Like, you always say when something like Die Hard, why did we pick this day in John McClane's life? Well, because this is the day where they take over Nakatomi Plaza, right? So why are we in this? And I love what you're saying, Mike, because I think it plays into me, like, again, maybe who's protecting the timekeepers? Who are they? Maybe they're no one, the man behind maybe it's Sylvie herself. So it just makes me think that all of this stuff has to be connected. Like you're saying, the stuff that's happening in the office with Ravonna, Loki and Sylvie, the enchantments, right? Like, is she enchanting everybody? Is there a bigger enchantress that is doing this whole thing? Is the TVA even real? It makes me question all that kind of stuff. Were those the real stones? Or was that whole thing just a ploy to get Loki to believe that this was really powerful? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just starting to question everything from the beginning. If it was all just a big ruse to somehow trick maybe Loki into doing something, like he has to let her go or have a power or something like that, basically.
Would it bother you if that was the case?
Not at all.
Because that sounds similar to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just along for the ride. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I feel like some people. I don't fall into this category, but I feel like some people might be pissed, kind of looking at it the same way as, like, if a character wakes up and you find out the whole season was a dream, something like that, like the who shot JR shit. Like, I feel like there'd be people who'd be pissed about that if it was like, oh, none of that actually happened and it was all a ruse just to trick Loki into, telling her his fucking pin code. like who knows?
Oh.
I would love that.
I don't know that I don't think I would be upset about it. I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really enjoying the ride on this show. I really am. And even when we theorize and talk about that, unless it's when it's something that kind of goes against if a character does something that's totally out of whack. But that's why, like, even that WandaVision episode where they just explained everything to us, I wasn't really upset. I kind of figured, okay, maybe some people need it. You know what?
Dumb people.
Yeah, well, could be true, but I just figured, hey, but one of those people might be like my son, a little kid or something. You know what I mean? So if it's a simple thing in the end, or it's like a big trick, I'm not against it. I'm starting to feel more and more like this is a show about the great trickster.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be fun if in the end the whole show was a trick, was a ruse for another purpose? I'm actually feeling more comfortable with that. Actually, I kind of desire that from the show.
I think out of all the shows we've had so far, a big plot twist makes the most sense in this show. I know people were, like I said earlier, people were suspecting it in WandaVision. Falcon and Winter Soldier, we knew where that story was going to end up at.
Mhm.
Anybody who was paying attention. This feels like you can, especially if you add on to the fact that technically speaking, Loki's story, quote unquote, ended with Infinity War. This is kind of almost like bonus content that they can probably add into the MCU and bring him back. It kind of leaves that door open. But the Loki that we know, his story ended in Infinity War. So if they wanted to like mess with our heads and things like that, it kind of flip the tables. I'm fine with that, especially since if I remember correctly, they said this show is getting a season 2.
What?
I think I did hear something like that.
Oh, that I didn't know. I haven't heard that.
I don't know if I know that recently they were talking about just in general the season 2s of these shows, and if there'll be, I think Kevin Feige, how do you pronounce him?
How the fuck do you pronounce his name?
Feige.
Like, are you certain? Because I've heard multiple pronunciations.
I have too.
And I have not heard him say his name. Like, I really want to know how the fuck to say that shit.
I've heard Feige. I've heard Feig.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's a hard name. He should just change it for us.
He's just call himself Kevin.
Kevin Jones.
Yeah.
Kelvin Cox. Call him that.
That's the secret identity. Yeah, I heard some about that where they said maybe. I mean, I think it all depends. I think they're doing a good thing, and what they'll probably do is all get in a room and say, "Hey, does this make sense?" You know, when we plot out the other ones, and one of them probably will end up with a season 2, and another one won't, but it won't be the same kind of thing. And I honestly, it is a new way of looking at TV because I really do see these as part of a continuum of the whole MCU. So it doesn't really matter to me, honestly, if there's like a second season or not. Let's see, what else do we got? Did you all find it? I don't know if you all commented on her backstory. Did you find anything of interest in that, or how she was adopted too? They told her up front. She gave us a little bit of who she is as a person. Did you find any value in that, or anything you want to comment on?
I just thought it was an interesting backstory. I think that I'm fascinated by her character and how they're doing it so far, and I like that she is strong-willed, strong-minded, and like you said before, she reminds us of the Loki from Avengers in terms of even how she fights more aggressively. When she was taking all these soldiers and stuff, while Loki was kind of just almost there. I like it so far. I like where this is going. I'm curious, and you mentioned it earlier, not to change the topics, but I'm curious on these things, on how this story is going to end. And how, because we're led to believe that, I can't remember the guy's name, all the guys who work for the company were former variants, correct?
Yeah.
So we also should assume that they had former lives that were wiped from their mind. And I think that's like the scene where we saw Sylvie going into Hunter's mind. That, I think that was real in terms of that moment happened. It just didn't happen with Sylvie. She's pulling things from her actual mind.
Right. And that didn't seem that long ago either.
Yes. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how they're getting away with all these variants that are now working for them and they have no recollection of their past. And what happens when they find out about their past? Will they find out about their past?
That's an interesting theory. I like that.
It is, because it makes you think too, if they were all variants, what made them, are they variants like Loki? Are they all like time criminals? They're all people who took advantage of time travel to profit or for themselves or mess with the time, right?
See,
So-
and that's the thing about it. When they first explained it, the person didn't necessarily have to take advantage of time. They just had to make a mistake that would alter their reality.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's why they had the trial. So if the trial was determined, was it done maliciously? It was done maliciously. That variant would be wiped from existence, supposedly. We straight up killed right then. And if it wasn't done maliciously, they would wipe their mind and put them back in the timeline where they were at. And they wouldn't notice that anything happened.
But I guess they weren't doing that. What they were really doing is wiping their mind and turning them into a TVA worker.
With certain ones, I think that's what they were probably doing. Like certain people they were killing straight up, and ones they felt like they probably could work with, they were just making them TVA workers.
It's really interesting, man. You think about it wouldn't take, this is one of those stories where it wouldn't really even take somebody like a timekeeper to do this.
Yes.
It would take someone who is able to trick the first few people, right? It's like a pyramid scam, right? Like a cult or something. You just need to get the first 5, and then that convinces everyone else that it's real and that it's been around for so long, you know? And it could be, it very well could be that this whole thing is relatively new. You know, like they're playing it out like this is some ancient thing that exists outside of time. So that's a great point, Delvin. You think about they have to have a past history. Yeah, I was like thinking about why was Owen Wilson obsessed with jet skis? Was
There you
he
go.
ride on jet skis in his past life?
Probably. No, I mean that's probably what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing it could be, was there some grand event that caused there to be a lot of variants, right? Like, are they becoming variants against their will? Did someone else do something that caused a time ripple, and then they were just around to witness it or try to make it right in some way that they didn't even understand what they were doing? Like Delvin's saying, they weren't maliciously doing this, right? Like they were trying to live out their own life. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, there's got to be a backstory there to all these people.
Could be
And-
tied to the blip too.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh man, see? Now I'm hesitant. Do we get this deep? Is it gonna be the simple thing? 'Cause I
And
like this now. I'm
if you
excited.
add to the fact that Enchantress literally knows how to go into people's minds, that could be the reason why they're hunting her. Like she probably can reverse the effects on some of these people.
maybe it's an experiment or a enchantment that got out of hand.
Yeah.
Right, like that she created it, and now, because one of the things is
That would be too similar to WandaVision, though. I don't know if I would like that. Like that's the same thing Wanda did.
true, very true. Is that similar, or is that good writing, and is that keeping themes consistent?
No, it's too similar. It'd be too similar.
Is it foreshadowing, or is it just recycling? It's all in the delivery. So I kind of, yeah, I agree with that. That's interesting. But because they do say, you know, and a lot of articles, and even the little blurb on this was like, you know, Sylvie, Loki finds out her grand plan. And I was watching the episode, and when I rewatch it too, I was like, did I miss something? Because he just says she wants to take out the timekeepers and the TVA, right?
Mhm.
Well, we already knew that. That was obviously her plan.
Yeah.
Right? So is the reveal, is it greater than, that's why I think it's got to be like, there's got to be something more to it, that she had a part in starting this accidentally or on purpose, or is like, you know, I don't know, her mom and dad was, you know what I mean? Like Owen Wilson's her dad or some shit, you know, so they could play in the whole Loki thing.
Oh boy.
Owen Wilson's her brother, You know, that would be like, where's her Thor?
Interesting.
Mm.
If there's a Loki for everyone, where's a Thor? Where's the Odin? Right? Like we have, like if you start thinking about it that way, I don't know. We
Did
could
they
go.
ever even say anything about who her parents were? Like she said, like she said that they told her, but did she specify that she has an Odin?
No, she just said that she said her mom was no good, and he said that his mom was like a saint, right?
Yeah. That's right.
That's basically what they said. So she, even though she knew she was adopted, he had the better upbringing, is basically the gist of the conversation. Like he got adopted into the rich family, and maybe
Yeah.
she got adopted into the bad family. That's kind of what I took from it.
I did not expect to be going balls deep on this episode, but here we are.
Well, we've seen a bunch of balls today anyway. So. Seems fitting.
I was watching. I am sitting on my floor because it's 115 degrees outside in Portland. So I am not in my garage. And these gentlemen have been getting a nice eyeful when I stand up. But I will try to close the Zoom before I stand up and end this one. But I think that's all we got. One other thing I want to say is I do look forward to Owen Wilson coming back next week. I missed him. He's great, and you don't need every episode, but I missed him.
Same.
I did too.
He's a great one. He's fun. And I kind of do think that he's going to pop up and be like, come on, Loki, let's go. You know, you just stand. His nose is so weird. Like, I just can't stop looking at it.
He should fix that.
I feel like it's getting worse. Like if you go back and watch like Wedding Crashers and then watch Loki, you'd be like, no, his nose is it's deteriorating. Like it's something going on here.
He has enough money to fix that nose.
I don't, it's your thing, dude. I think he's a great looking dude. He's just an interesting looking guy, you know?
Maybe he's keeping it just like Anthony Davis keeps the one eyebrow. It's like his thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's his signature.
Yeah.
You see his brother's like super handsome. So I think they're just, you know, they got good stock. He's just got a weird nose.
Yeah.
I think there's a story there that he broke it a lot playing some sport or something like that. But we'll have to figure that out that'll be our background research for next episode. But for now, I'm going to go jump in the pool. Anything else you fellas would like to say?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for downloading. Thank you, Glenn, for the great info last week and back that up with some more info this week. Thanks to Matt and Gareth and Tim and all the people on the Facebook for
Not Tim.
No, not Tim.
Yeah, he's a DJ. We got enough of them. Everybody's a DJ.
Yeah.
Good one though. Check out Twitch Out Tuesdays, baby. But anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading dvrpodcast.com. Go to the Delvin Cox Experience and one mic. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.